Hello everyone, today's video I'll be reviewing The Dark Knight Rises, the third and final of the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight Trilogy. After the huge success of The Dark Knight, around this time no one would think that Nolan would make another Batman film, especially after the death of Heath Ledger. In high school, a year later after Heath Ledger's death, and when The Dark Knight came out, I was a sophomore in high school. I started really reading into movies on the internet around this time, but little lesson I learned around this time, don't believe everything the internet tells you. And this is even very true in today's modern world. There was an internet rumor about a possible third Batman movie where they announced that Johnny Depp and Philip Seymour Hoffman were casted. Johnny Depp was going to play the Riddler and Philip Seymour Hoffman was going to play the Penguin. My first thought was, alright, that sounds awesome. But unfortunately, it turned out to be a false, fake rumor. Both actors admitted that they were not offered, and there was no script at the time. There was also a rumor about Nolan leaving the franchise, and that Bale was going to be recast as Batman, and that Batman would be rebooted again. 2 years later, in 2011, around the time I was a senior in high school, Nolan announced that I will make one more Batman movie, and that was it. Nolan's another filmmaker who's not really big on making sequels and doing franchises, despite that he made 3 Batman movies. Nolan also said he wanted to end the trilogy just the way he wanted it to, and have complete control over it. The Dark Knight Rises was directed by Christopher Nolan, the last time he directed a Batman movie. He also produced, co-wrote, and did the screenplay for this film. It was produced by Emma Thomas, story was written by David S. Goyer, and the screenplay was done by Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother. The Dark Knight Rises stars Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Gary Oldman reprising their roles for a third time and final time, Anne Hathaway, Tom Hardy, Marion Cotillard, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Morgan Freeman playing Lucius Fox for the final time. The Dark Knight Rises was released on July 20th, 2012. It made $1.081 billion at the box office. This is probably the second Batman movie to make over $1 billion at the box office. The Dark Knight Rises takes place 8 years after the events of The Dark Knight, when Batman killed Harvey Dent, saving Jim Gordon and his family. Batman took the blame for the death of Harvey Dent. Batman is retired. Once new villains arrive in Gotham City, Catwoman, a cat burglar, Bane, a mercenary, and the League of Shadows are back in Gotham to finish off what Ra's al Ghul's destiny to destroy Gotham City. This makes Batman come out of retirement to save Gotham once again. I'm not gonna lie, this movie may be not as good as The Dark Knight. It has its flaws, but honestly, to me this movie is just okay. It's not great or a masterpiece, it's just a decent solid movie. Nolan knew he was not going to top The Dark Knight. He basically just wrapped everything up and rushed it to the end of the series and wanted to move on to other film projects. After The Dark Knight, Batman Begins was overshadowed and forgotten in this movie. You have to watch Batman Begins in order to understand the continuity of the storyline of this film. You can watch The Dark Knight get away with not seeing Batman Begins, because in The Dark Knight, they don't mention the League of Shadows. And once again, just like the 2 previous Dark Knight movies by Nolan, he combined popular Batman comic books like The Dark Knight Returns, the Knightfall comic, and Batman's No Man's Land, which I'm not gonna lie, I never read Batman's No Man's Land. I saw this movie twice when it came out. I saw it in the theaters with a friend of mine. The second time I saw it with my dad. This movie came out the same year as The Avengers. I was a senior in high school, and I graduated just in time. These movies were awesome graduation presents. My thought at the time was, what more could a high school senior graduate ask for as a present for superhero movies, especially some of my favorite of Marvel and DC? I also want to touch upon a personal thing that happened around this time when this movie came out, about the shootout in Colorado when James Holmes killed 12 people, and 70 people were injured and survived at the Aurora movie theater in Colorado. I'll never forget when this happened. I was shocked and sick to my stomach hearing about something like this happening. It made me think of all the places, the movie theaters that have a gun shootout, where something bad happened. I used to always think that the movie theater was a safe place, but after that incident, it made me think that no matter where you go in life, bad things can happen anywhere when you least expect it. I'll also never get around the time I was afraid to go to the movies at that time because of the incident. Because I remember they also started like banning not allowing people to wear costumes or bring toy guns, not knowing if that toy gun was like fake or real or not. When I went to go see The Dark Knight Rises in the movie theater, I was a little nervous and afraid, thinking like, what if a shootout would happen? But thankfully nothing bad happened. Tom Hardy's Bane was good. I'll admit, he was good as Bane, but his voice sounded like a combination of Darth Vader and Sean Connery. When I saw this in the movie theaters with my friend, I was whispering in his ear, "Is this for real?" People made fun of that voice when the movie came out. Despite the weird, funny voice, Tom Hardy was still good as Bane, much better than upgraded Batman and Robin. From what I've heard, that his voice sounded different compared to post-production and what Bane was originally supposed to sound like. I'll never forget when they announced Bane was going to be the villain in this movie. My first thought was, are you kidding me? Did no one see Batman and Robin? Because around this time, I still saw his Bane as very juvenile because of Batman and Robin. When I saw this movie, read the Knightfall comic book, that's when it hit me, made me realize how great of a Bane... From what I remember reading about, his voice sounded different compared to post-production, what Bane was originally supposed to sound like. I'll never forget when they announced Bane was going to be the villain in this movie. My first thought was, are you kidding me? Did no one not watch Batman and Robin? For some reason around this time period, I still saw Bane as very juvenile because of Batman and Robin. I thought he was like this big like Hulk steroid freak with no personality. When I saw this movie, read the Knightfall comic around this time, that's when it hit me and made me realize how great of a Batman villain Bane is. And I also realized how Bane is one of Batman's most smart and intelligent villains. This movie and the Knightfall comic book gave me a different view and interpretation on Bane, and it gave me more respect for the Bane character. Going into it, I kept thinking, are they going to go the Knightfall comic direction? And they nailed it perfectly. It was done very well. People also complain about changing his ethnicity, because in the comic books, Bane is Spanish, and in this movie he's British, which really did not bother me that much. It was a minor change-up. Also, Bane does not have the Venom steroids like in the comic books that make him look big and muscular. In this, he had some kind of condition. If he took the mask off, he will die. Or as he said, it will be extremely painful. Back when this movie came out, I remember one YouTuber I used to watch back in the day did not think Bane was not intimidating. I don't agree. Bane was very intimidating. Maybe the voice, not intimidating, but his physically was very intimidating. He broke Batman's back, blew up a football stadium, and snapped two people's neck. How can you not find that intimidating? And also, one thing they did very well, just like in the comic books, Bane was born in the prison. The opening scene was awesome and epic when they introduced Bane. I love the music score. His motivations are very simple, as he intended to fulfill Ra's al Ghul's destiny and legacy of destroying Gotham City. Before he blows up the football stadium, he comments on a little boy who sings the national anthem for someone who is going to destroy the stadium. He appreciates and praises the little boy's voice, but he still had to blow up the stadium. That's a very lovely, lovely voice. When Bane's at the stock market, a broker tells him that this is a stock exchange, there's no money here. And Bane replies, "Really? Why are you people here?" It's another social commentary and example on where does all the money go when the stock market crashes, and how Wall Street is corrupt, and how they steal hardworking citizens' monies. It also reflects on the post-2008 economic collapse recession we had 4 years prior, and the economy was in a tank around this time period. When Bane broke Batman's back, it's similar how like in Rocky IV when Ivan Drago killed Apollo Creed in a boxing match. But different, of course. I'll never forget when they announced that Tom Hardy was going to be Bane. He was rising, coming up as a star. He was in Inception, another Chris Nolan movie. But his part of that film was very small, nothing memorable. Good movie, I just don't really remember his character. He was also in Warrior. That was a really good movie. He plays an MMA fighter who fights his older brother for a championship title. He was also in the film Bronson, which is supposed to be good, but I haven't seen that one. He was the kind of actor that was around for years, but nobody really knew who he was until like recent years now. He's got more popular recognition, especially how he played Venom. Also, being a fitness fanatic that I am, I'll never forget people wanted to know, like, how did he get those big traps because he was such a big beast as Bane. It was a big twist that Marion Cotillard was Talia al Ghul. Before the movie came out, I heard rumors, but I did not try to read too much into it. When a movie like this comes out, I try not to read too much into it because I want to be surprised rather than knowing what to expect when I go see a movie. I also did not get the hints like I see now that she was Talia al Ghul. She was not bad. I feel like they rushed her too quickly. Then she was like the villain for like the last 10 minutes and died of a painful death. Anne Hathaway as Catwoman was okay. She's not great, and she's not one of my favorite actresses to play Catwoman. But to Nolan's credit, she betrayed Catwoman just like the comic books compared to Michelle Pfeiffer, which I still like. I always still prefer Michelle Pfeiffer, that's just my opinion. It's crazy how a decade before, she was a Disney princess in the Princess Diaries movies. And she broke her typecast, becoming a serious actress. The scene when Bruce goes to the masquerade ball and Bruce is the only one not wearing a mask, because Bruce wears a mask every night. It also reminded me of Batman Returns when Bruce and Selina are at Max Shreck's masquerade ball. It's very ironic that she was in Brokeback Mountain with Heath Ledger. People point out the Joker and Catwoman in the same movie. I will say that her character was definitely two-dimensional, because sometimes she was good and sometimes she was bad. I like when Batman and Catwoman run away from Bane. They get in the Batplane, and she says, "My mother warned me about getting to strangers with cars." Batman replies, "This isn't a car." When they fly off, Batman drops her off at some random building. Batman turns around, and she's gone. And Batman says, "So that's what it feels like," mocking himself when he disappears after talking to Jim Gordon. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays Detective John Blake. He was great in this movie. He was likable, caring. I tell you, it's amazing. I grew up watching him in the movie Angels in the Outfield. And never in a million years I imagined that kid was going to be a big movie star. When I saw this movie in the theaters, it did not occur to me, and I did not get the hint that he was Robin. Especially how his last name was Blake as a reference to John Blake and Tim Drake. When he goes to Bruce Wayne's mansion informed about Jim Gordon's condition, and he tells about the first time he saw and met him when he was a little kid, he knew that by looking at his face that he was Batman. Okay, how is that he was able to tell by looking at Bruce Wayne's face knowing he was Batman? It's not like he's Superman when people don't recognize that Clark Kent is Superman with those glasses on. The ending was a great cliffhanger ending when we leave on a high note, seeing Blake at the Batcave on whether or not will Blake be Robin or the new Batman. Especially how Bruce trusted him because of his background story. It's sad we never got to see Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Robin or a new Batman. I guess also because at the time Man of Steel came out a year later, they wanted a DC cinematic universe like Marvel, and I guess they did not want to tie the Nolan Batman movies in. Especially how Christopher Nolan was confirmed this was his last Batman movie he was directing, not directing any more Batman movies after that. Also, just like Anne Hathaway, Joseph Gordon-Levitt worked with Heath Ledger in 10 Things I Hate About You. I'll never forget there was this internet meme of as a joke, the Joker and Robin went to high school together. I thought that was kind of funny. But it's also crazy and ironic when you make the connection which actors worked with who on this film. They were both in Batman movies in different films though. I don't know why. It made me sad when Alfred and Bruce's relationship was negatively impacted when Alfred told Bruce the truth on Rachel wanting to marry Harvey Dent. That Alfred tells Bruce to move on with his life. Alfred leaves after that conversation. Also, Alfred was scared and afraid of Bruce losing to Bane because of his size and strength. Then after that incident, Bruce lost everything. He ends up going broke. After when Bruce Wayne loses his money, how is he still able to keep the mansion after that? After when Batman recovers from his broken back and jumps up to rise, it was awesome. One of my favorite moments of the series. It was epic. It's like Batman was reborn and rising up again after when Bane broke his back. When I saw this in the movie theaters, I really thought Batman died. When I saw it a second time with my dad, it hit me and I got the hints the second time on how he survived the bombing. When Alfred is at the cafe and sees Bruce with Selina, I thought that was in his head, but it was real that he saw Bruce with a woman. One thing I finally give Nolan some credit, unlike the first two movies, the fight choreograph scenes were a little bit messy and confusing, hard to follow and understand what was trying to see in the last two films. The fight choreographs were the best and the cameras were not shaking. Nolan did a good job keeping the shots of Batman and Bane fighting each other pretty well. I love the final fight scene between Bane and Batman. It was revenge, redemption for Batman to beat Bane. But again, the voices of Bale's Batman really got annoying at this point. I feel like at this point, people were burnt out with Bale's voice as Batman. This movie was very epic and it was a great finale to the Nolan Trilogy. I'm not gonna lie, even though I do like this movie, I'll admit, the movie does have its flaws. Just because it has flaws, it does not mean it's a bad movie. It doesn't mean I don't like the movie. Sometimes even a good movie can have its flaws. One minor complaint I'll admit that this film can be too long and drag at times. There were some scenes in dialogue they could have cut that would not have affected the movie that much. Christopher Nolan got a little bit lazy rushing and just wanted to end the series. He did give it a good proper finale, but I just felt like he rushed it sometimes. You can tell that Nolan was done with Batman, didn't really want to make any more Batman movies at this point in his career as a film director. Sometimes I wish Nolan could make another Batman film, but I honestly don't think that's not going to happen at this point in time. What are your thoughts on Dark Knight Rises, the final of the Nolan trilogy?
Well, I liked the movie. I did not like it as much as the previous Batman, and I think that there were some really they're excellent performances, and I think the thrust of this movie is to show how human Batman is. That Batman is not this like Superman.
No.
He has his faults and he has his weaknesses. So this showed a side of Batman that we rarely see. And I had never read Knightfall, which I plan to do. I had always known the iconic cover of the comic book with Bane breaking Batman's back always struck me and made me curious about that.
I think that's what made every comic book fan curious when that comic book came out at the time. Like, how is the big question was, is Batman going to fight crime? Or is he going to retire? Who's going to take his place? Or
right. Yeah, and it's fantasy in the sense that what he went through, he couldn't recover from that if this happened in real life.
Oh no, of course not. But it's the movies, right? The comic books and fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even with like the whole thing with his knee, and he's wearing that thing.
Right.
So he's like when he sees the doctor, your knee is destroyed. But in any event, it is fantasy. It's the comic books.
Yes.
and it's the movies. I also thought that Catwoman was an interesting character, and I won't say exactly what happens, but I thought the ending was really cool. I thought it was very touching, and the twist that they have in the movie was, I didn't expect that was coming.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really neat.
Would you say that like Nolan kind of rushed it because he was just done with Batman at this point, and he just wanted to end the series so we can move on to other things?
It could be, but I think he put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, I thought the same. And what did you think of Tom Hardy as Bane?
I thought he was really good. He was excellent. You can tell he really bulked up for the role.
Everybody wanted to know how to get those big, humongous traps when this movie came out. Did you also know who he was prior? Because he was like a newbie at this time.
I really didn't know much about Tom Hardy.
Okay.
So he was new to me.
Okay, gotcha. Before any other closing thoughts on Dark Knight, right before I briefly ask you about Batman versus Superman, or
no?
What did you think of Batman versus Superman? Even though that's not going to be in a full review, but what did you think of Ben Affleck as Batman?
Well, I like Ben Affleck as Batman. I thought he did a good job. He's definitely grown as an actor because early on I wasn't impressed by him. I especially did not like the movie Daredevil. I don't think he was a good Daredevil, but I thought he was very good as Batman.
Just the movies were just not what they expected. Right. They turned out the way he wanted them to be. And
yeah.
Are you excited for Robert Pattinson's 2022
Batman?
Yeah,
I am. I am excited. I've seen the trailer, and I'm eagerly anticipating its release.
Okay, we'll do a review of that together.
Okay.
So that was my review of The Dark Knight Rises and the whole Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. So stay tuned for Batman vs. Superman.